Hello, my name is John, and I'm speaking on behalf of Compass Christian Church in Davao City, Philippines, as well as Davao City Outreach. Please look in the video description below the video when you're done, and you'll find out more about our ministry and what we're doing here in the Philippines. I want to take advantage of the place where many parents are stuck at today, stuck at home with your kids. I think that's an amazing opportunity. And I want to help equip the parents out there and turn this into a blessing instead of a trial, and that you hopefully get to the point where you enjoy your kids. Because believe me, time is going to fly, and before you know it, your kids will be 18, 20 years old and moving away. Non-parents, this message is for you also. Maybe you're an older sibling and you can help your parents with young siblings. Maybe you're a grandpa or grandma or a friend. You can help encourage your friends who are parents. And you know what? I studied parenting for I don't know. I think eight or 9 years when I was a young man. I studied parenting before I ever became a parent, and I learned a lot just by watching other parents so you can learn also, even if you're not a parent yet. You can treasure these things up in your heart and put them to work when you do become a parent. So that you can, it's worth studying this topic no matter where you are in life. So let's look at a few reasons why you should work on your parenting skills. Number one, because society will simply be better if you raise your kids right. If we raise our kids wrong, there will be more criminals, more corrupt politicians, more bad influences in popular culture, all kinds of things. But if we get a generation that raises their kids right, then the next generation will be much better for it. You should work on your parenting skills because God has put precious souls into your care, and you will have to answer to Him one day. Luke 12:48 says, "Much will be required of everyone who has been given much." And if you're a parent, you have been given very much. Even more will be asked of the person who is supposed to take care of much. Let's be aware of that responsibility to God, because as I said, we will have to answer to God one day. Psalm 127:3, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, and offspring are a reward from Him." Your children are not a curse; they are a blessing. They're a reward, and if you raise them right, when you are old, they will be your reward and your joy. Another reason why you should work on your parenting skills, because your kids will talk about you. I know this from experience because I was once a kid, and so I'll never forget. It was about in the 1970s, maybe 1973. My dad one time called me ugly, and here it is about 45 years later, and I still remember it. I still remember who was there. I remember how people reacted. I remember my dad's fumbling sort of apology after he did it. And I just remember everything about the incident, and it was 45 years ago. And here I am talking about it. And of course I forgive my dad and I honor his memory. But I as I said, your kids will talk about you. Sorry, I've talked about my parents all of my life, and thankfully there's many wonderful things to say about them. But what will your kids say about you? That's what I hope to get you thinking about, because your kids will talk about you. And if you have teens, they already talk about you, believe me. What do you think they're saying? Hopefully they are saying good things about you. Hopefully they have nothing to criticize. So your kids will talk about you for the rest of your lives. What will they say 5, 10, 15, 45 years from now? Well, when your son is 58 like I am, will he be talking about something you said when he was 13? So hopefully it will be good things that they will say about you. Another reason to work on your parenting skills. If you do a little extra work now, you will reap the benefits of that. And that little bit of extra work now will save you a lot of work and a lot of grief in the long run. And I want to give an example of that. Okay, obviously this is not going to happen today because of all of the social distancing and quarantining and everything, but let's say in the future you and your child, if you have a toddler, you're in somebody's home and the toddler's having a good time, but it's time to go. So you say, okay, little Bernice, it's time to go, and then she flops on the floor and says, I don't want to go, I don't want to. Okay, what do you do? Unfortunately, I've seen so many parents do this. They will say, okay, Bernice, you stay here, bye-bye, I'm going to go now, I'm going to leave you, bye. And the parent starts to walk out the door. And then Bernice starts screaming and she says, no, don't go. And she runs after mommy or daddy. But there's some big problems with that. Number one, eventually Bernice is going to figure out that you're lying, that you wouldn't really leave her. And that leads to number two, Bernice will have less respect for you as a liar, and that is a lie. So you should never threaten your kids with something you're not going to do, especially something as, that's bad. If you were to leave your daughter and just walk away, that's bad. And so I hope you never do that. And if you've been doing it, I hope you don't do it anymore because, that's, number one, it's a deceptive trick that you're playing on your kid and she eventually will figure it out. And number two, it's just not good to lie to your kid, And so if you just take the extra work of, walking over, pick her up if you have to, or, find some other method that works that doesn't involve deception and lying and a threat like that. So I hope nobody listening to this will ever do that again. Proverbs 29:17. Discipline your children and they will give you peace. They will bring you the delights you desire. Again, if you just do a little bit extra work now and do the things that I'm going to advise in this message, then you will have more peace in your home. Okay? As I said, a little extra work now, and in the next year or 2 years, if you work hard at being a parent, then for the years after that, you'll think to yourself it was worth it. Because you'll save yourself a lot of work down the road, you'll save yourself heartaches and pulling out your hair. Here's another example of something that parents do that's just wrong. You make a decision, then your child cries, then you change your mind. Let's say it's little Bernice wanting to stay when you said it's time to go. So she cries, I don't want to go. And then you change your mind. Okay, because you cried, we'll stay longer. So you're teaching your child that crying and throwing a temper tantrum brings blessings. When you reward something, you're going to get more of it. Does that make sense? And you're also decreasing your child's respect for you, because your child should not be able to manipulate you like that. So in the first bad example, we talked about you manipulating the child. In this one, the child is manipulating you if you were doing that. So when you make decisions, make decisions carefully. If you're going to tell your child it's time to go, make sure it really is time to go. And if it's negotiable, you could say, would you like to go now? But if it's not negotiable, if it really is time to go, then you need to stand by that. And so that way, if you really think before you make decisions, then you won't be, because if you don't really think about it and you say it's time to go, and then she has a fit and screams, and then you change your mind thinking, well, it's not really time to go, I can wait. Then she thinks, okay, I've won a victory because I manipulated mommy by screaming and having a fit. And again, she will have less respect for you. So when you make decisions regarding your children, whether it's time to go or whether she can watch that movie or that video or whatever it is, make your decisions carefully. And then you won't be swayed when your child has a fit or pouts or whatever. because you'll be making the best decision and you'll be able to confidently stand by your decision. And so when you teach your child that crying brings blessings, and when you decrease your child's respect for you, both of those things will reduce your peace. Or how about this, when you give your child a command, then your child ignores you and does not obey the command, then you surrender and then you think, oh, it's not worth fighting over. Then that teaches your child that disobedience brings blessings. And you're decreasing the child's respect for you. So again, in the first instance, it's your decision about we need to do something or you need to do something. And again, here when you give a command and your child ignores you, and maybe the child pretends not to hear you, or maybe the child is defiant. Either way, you need to stick to your decision, and it goes back to the fact that you need to make your decisions carefully. If you tell your child, okay, it's time to clean your room. Okay, is it really time to clean your room and there's no negotiating? It really is time? Or if it's not so, if you don't have to be so dogmatic about it, you shouldn't say, time to clean your room, go clean your room. You should say, honey, do you think it's time to clean your room now? And if you're willing to negotiate, that's a good way to say it, rather than a command. And then when she ignores you, then you have to back down. So again, be careful when you make your decisions about your child, what you're telling your child, and when you make that decision, stick by it. And then your child, in the long run, your child will respect you for that. And so we want to give you more peace as a parent, like it says in Proverbs, that when your child is obedient, it gives you your peace. And we want peace in your home. Kids need to be taught that bad decisions lead to bad consequences. Sometimes just allowing the child to reap what he or she has sown is good. Sometimes you don't need to punish a child for making a bad decision. Sometimes if the child does something foolish and gets hurt, then that's probably enough punishment. Or if the child gets in trouble at school and the school disciplines the child, then you don't need to, then maybe you don't need to also discipline the child. So, again, kids need to learn that bad decisions lead to bad consequences, whether they're immediate or sometimes the consequences don't happen in this life. But when we teach our children that, as adults, we know that sometimes the bad consequences don't happen in this life, and sometimes, when people don't follow Jesus and they keep sowing bad seed, they will reap what they sow, but they might not reap it until the next life. But when you teach your children, and when you make sure your children get bad consequences for making bad decisions, then you're teaching them the truth that what you sow, you will reap. And so you're cementing that in their souls and in their character. If you help them to learn that people do reap from their bad consequences or from their bad decisions. So kids have to be taught that they need to do what's right, even if they don't feel like it. And most of the time, kids don't feel like, working or, cleaning their room or, helping their little brother with his homework or something like that. But they need to be taught that doing what's right is the best thing to do, even if they don't feel like it. Doing the right thing is a habit that will bless them for the rest of their lives. And if you help them to establish that habit and, just the habit of, oh, I see something that needs to be done, I'll do it. Then if you can get your child in that habit, that will bless them for the rest of his or her life. It's called maturity. That's what mature people do, is they see what needs to be done, they do it, or they see what needs to be avoided and they don't do that. That's maturity. Small children don't care about what's right or wrong. A baby doesn't care if there's another baby and that's his toy he's playing with. The baby's going to try and take it away, whether that's the right thing to do or not. So it's a parent's job to make them care and to make them aware of that there are consequences, and like I said, the law of sowing and reaping. And so eventually your child will learn to care about consequences and about bad decisions. So many times I've seen a small child do something rebellious or just disobedient in some way, and the mommy will run over and say, "Oh, you're so cute," and pick up the child and kiss, kiss, kiss. The kid just rebelled. The kid just disobeyed, and the mom just, you know, rewards the child because he's so cute or she's so cute. And okay, the child may be cute, but there still needs to be consequences, or at least not rewarding when the child disobeys. I had a nephew many years ago, back in the 1980s, who used to, what did he say? This isn't in my notes. He used to say something insulting to adults, and his parents would laugh and laugh and laugh because it was cute the way he said it. But yeah, that was not the right thing to do, and I won't go into all the details about, you know, that child, because the child is still a relative. But anyway, the point is, even if the child is cute, don't withhold discipline when it's needed, and definitely don't reward bad behavior. Dr. James Dobson had this very wise thing to say: deep down inside, children merely want to know where the boundaries are and who will enforce them. Children who don't get disciplined are more insecure than other kids. Any psychologist will tell you that. Security comes when you set boundaries for a child and you lovingly but firmly enforce those boundaries. And you don't, you know, change the boundaries every day, and you don't change the boundaries if you're in a bad mood or if the child's in a bad mood. Boundaries should be fixed, and of course, you know, if emergencies happen, or, you know, there can be some flexibility, but it doesn't need to flop around every time somebody's in a bad mood. So set your boundaries carefully and keep those boundaries, and that will make your child feel secure. Here's an example. The grown-up dog tells the puppy, "Fine, you can sleep here, but only for tonight." And then 5 years later, you know, the older dog didn't keep the boundaries. And so it's kind of a cute example of what I'm talking about. So if you make a border, consistently enforce it. Do not send confusing and contradicting messages to your children, because, as I said, they will feel less secure. Having boundaries gives a child security. Hebrews 12:5-7. Do not despise the Lord's discipline. Do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves. When you discipline your child lovingly, then your child will be more secure because of it. And I'm not talking, when I say discipline, I'm not talking about flying into a rage and, you know, getting revenge on your child. Don't ever get revenge on a child. Discipline is not revenge. Discipline is not because the child hurt you and you need to do something to hurt the child. No, discipline should always be with the motive of, I want to be a blessing to this child. I want to teach this child how to live right and how to please God. And so it's, you know, as it says here in Hebrews, it's because of God's love that he disciplines us. It goes on to say, he disciplines everyone he accepts as his son. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. So if God disciplines us, then how much more should we discipline our children with a motive of being a blessing to them? Okay, there's a lot of words on the screen now, so don't freak out. I'm going to talk about each section one by one. But I'm going to talk about the different kinds of parenting, and I think all parents fall into one of these categories, or maybe they're on the border of two different categories. But you can see at the top there's a high amount of control, and at the bottom there's a low amount of control. On this side there's a low amount of warmth and affection, and at the other side there's a high amount of warmth and affection. So ideally, you're going to want to be over here. The best parents have a high amount of control and a high amount of affection. And might as well point out, with my parents, my dad was authoritarian, and my mom was permissive, but I'll talk about those in a minute. Let's start out with authoritative, not to be confused with authoritarian. Authoritative, again, is the best kind of parenting. There's nurturing, there's boundaries, there's expectations, you're responsive, you're accepting, there's open communication, and there's discipline. And again, there's high amounts of warmth and affection and hugs and kisses, but there's also a high amount of control. There's boundaries and there's discipline. So that's the best kind of parenting. Another kind is the authoritarian. The authoritarian is all into control, and there's a high amount of control, but unfortunately there's no affection or, well, let's just read it. Strict, high expectations, gives orders, rejecting, controlling, unsupportive. Unfortunately, my dad, I love him very much, and of course I have no bitterness towards him, but my dad was kind of in this category. There were a few times in my life when he showed affection, but not very often. But he was very strict, he had high expectations, he gave a lot of orders and along those lines. And so, on the other hand, my mom was more like this, permissive. Affectionate, nurturing, indulgent, little control. You know, when we used to misbehave as kids, you know, she would just talk about how exasperated she was, and then she wouldn't do anything, you know. And I could even quote her, but I'm not going to do that. Just a lot of giving in, a lot of surrender, inconsistent boundaries. But I think what helped me is my dad's high control and low warmth, and my mom's high warmth and low control. I think they kind of balanced each other out, and so that's why I didn't turn into a mass murderer. So, but anyway, no, I had a good childhood, and so I thank God for my parents. They didn't have the benefit of being taught a class like this, and so I'm sure they did the best they could. And the other kind of parenting is the worst of all, where there's low control and there's low warmth. Uninvolved, rejecting, neglected, self-absorbed, no boundaries. Oops, they misspelled boundaries there. And so, yeah, don't be this kind of parent. That's the opposite of what you should be. So again, these are the kinds of parenting, and hopefully either you're the authoritative parent or you're heading in that direction. And hopefully this message will help you to get in that direction. Again, you want to be nurturing, but with boundaries. You want to have expectations, and yet be responsive to your child's needs. Accept your child. Never say things like "go away" or "I don't want to see you" or things like that. Never insult your child in demeaning ways. Always keep open communication. Of course, discipline has to be part of your lifestyle. So here's a neglectful mom in the photo, and the child is writing in kind of childish spelling, "Pay attention to me" on the wall, and the mom doesn't even notice because she's busy talking to somebody on the phone, and so this proverb would correct that mom. And I'm sure they're actors, don't hold it against them. But Proverbs 29:15 says that correction gives wisdom to children, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. So your child needs time with you, Mom. Oops, I forgot to switch the Visayan from that slide. I'll have to do that later. But I originally preached this in Visayan, or not totally in Visayan, but with some Visayan. I forgot that. But that should say Mom at the bottom. Your child needs time with you, Mom. Okay, now let's pick on the dads. What's going on here? Kind of the same thing. The daughter's not misbehaving this time, but she feels sad. And Ephesians 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." And of course, there might be a time when dad needs to read something important and, you know, the daughter might want his attention. But hopefully this is not a lifestyle where the daughter is always seeking attention and the dad is always neglecting her. And so let's learn from that. And here's a kid who's feeling the same way. You know, parents have phones in their hands and no time for their child. And again, there are times when you have to answer a text or you have to look something up online. But hopefully you're also giving your child plenty of time and attention and affection. You were not just born to work and pay bills and die. God has a purpose for your life far beyond earning money or fulfilling your career aspirations. If you have children, then that's a huge part of why God put you on this earth, and you need to fulfill that because you will, as I say, you will answer to God for that one day. Okay, let's talk about reading. Okay, if you want your kids' grades to go up and your kid to feel more secure, and do you want to feel more bonded with your child, put your child in your lap at least once a week and read to your child. Of course, a book that's appropriate for the child's age, or even if it's a little bit above your child's age, you can explain the book. But there's just something precious about the intimacy, the physical connection of having your child in your lap and reading to your child and teaching your child face to face. That's you know, that's something that I'm so glad I did so much of that with my kids when they were little. Precious memories. There is no app to replace your lap. Parents, your child does not know how to take care of his or her mind. You know, we do to a large extent. We know, you know, things that we shouldn't read, things that we shouldn't watch, things that we shouldn't look at. We know a lot about how to take care of our minds and how to keep our minds healthy, but children don't know those things. And that's why you're there, parent, to help your child. And so when you know, if your child has, you know, is on YouTube, or there's a TV in your home, which I don't recommend, but you know, you might have a TV in your home, and you know, I've lived most of my life, probably 80% of my life, with no TV. I don't miss it at all. You know, I think TV is a wasteland, much more today than it was back when I first decided not to have a TV. But if you know, but there might be, you know, I'm not making a law out of this. I'm just saying what I recommend. But you know, if it's your conviction that God wants you to have a TV, that's up to you. That's fine. But if there's a TV in your home, don't let your child watch whatever he or she wants, and you're not even in the room. Your job is to help your child take care of his or her mind and spirit and soul. Psalm 101:3, I won't look at anything that is evil and call it good. And so much of what's on TV or YouTube, you know, YouTube is a minefield. You could be walking through what you think is a nice video, and then suddenly you step on a mine, there's profanity or there's a sexual scene or something like that. So be careful with YouTube. Also, other websites, you know, there's so much more sin out there, whether it's TV or the internet, or so much more opportunities to sin. And so all the more vigilant we need to be watching our kids. And here's a mom who thinks it's so cute if her daughter imitates something she heard somebody say. Maybe the daughter heard mom say this, or maybe she got it from TV or something like that. And so the daughter says a bad word, and mommy thinks it's so cute, so funny. And then the daughter gets a little bit older, and she learns maybe a dance from Miley Cyrus or somebody. I don't know, whoever's popular now. And so the mom is happy that the daughter learning how to dance like that in a way that, you know, when she gets older, if she dances like that, it will sexually entice boys. But the mom thinks it's harmless now that the daughter is little. And maybe the daughter is 10 years old, and she's learning how to dress like, indecently, and the mom thinks, well, she doesn't have a woman's figure, so it's okay. And so the next slide shows the girl as a teenager and pregnant, and the mom is wondering, where did I go wrong? Well, I can tell her where she went wrong. She went wrong by teaching her daughter that sin is cute, that when a child imitates the sins of adults, she thinks that's cute, but it's not cute. Mark 9:42, if you cause one of these little ones who trusts in me to fall into sin, it would be better for you to be thrown into the sea with a large millstone hung around your neck. So, yeah, this is bad news, and please, parents, do not do this. Do not encourage your children to imitate evil. Something I got from Facebook, a friend, and I was stunned when I saw these photos. I don't know if you can see the lyrics, but it's a couple of children doing karaoke, and I chopped the children out of the photo for their privacy. But it's a couple of children doing karaoke, and there are nasty lyrics on the screen. Not profanity, but it's definitely sexual. And this was some parents' idea of fun, having karaoke with children with a song with nasty words. So yeah, that's kind of like this situation. Anyway, let's move a little bit away from the don'ts, and let's move towards do's, things that you can do to help your children. In this case, help your children become more disciplined. Somebody made up a list, and the child has to fulfill all of this list before the child can use electronics. I think that's a great idea. And it has things like, making your bed, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, getting dressed, eating breakfast, reading, playing outside, building something creative. And if you can have your child to do a bunch of things and accomplish some good things in the morning before the child can use electronics, get on YouTube or play video games or whatever, that's incentive to get something done, and that pushes off for a while the addiction to electronics that your child might have, and hopefully you're not handing your child a cell phone or a tablet all day. If your child is 3 or older, he or she can do some kinds of cleaning. Especially if your child makes a mess. I think it's a good idea that, once your child gets to be about 3 years old, you can, if your child's in the chair eating lunch and the child accidentally spills a bunch of food onto the floor, don't punish your child for that. Do not ever spank your child for making a childish mistake. But it's not punishment to ask your child to help you clean it. Of course, a 3-year-old is not going to clean it very well, but if you get the child out of the chair and say, hey, can you help me clean this? You made a mess, and I'll make sure it gets fully cleaned up, but I want you to just help me a little bit and see if we can work together and get this done. That teaches the child some responsibility and some discipline, and I think it will also lead to fewer messes because then your child will be more careful and make fewer messes. When it's bedtime, fill your child with good thoughts before he goes to bed. Some water, please, sweetie. Excuse me. Since I'm not preaching as much lately, maybe that's affecting my voice. So it's bedtime, and if you want your child to fall right asleep and have a nice deep sleep and leave you alone and not wake you up during the night, thank you, sweetie. Then make the last moments of a child's day precious and just give him a warm feeling inside. Ask him about his favorite part of the day as you're sitting on the bed next to him. What were some of the good things that happened today, sweetie? Tell me about somebody who said something nice to you today. Or what did you accomplish today? Praise him for the good things he's done. Pray with him Tell him he's a blessing from God. He'll be so happy and confident, and he will love you more, and he will fall asleep happy, not tossing and turning, and, oh, does mom love me? Does dad hate me? You know, things like that. Here's a sad poem. I'm glad that we're together, Dad. I want to talk and play. I'll tell you all my hopes and dreams. You'll tell me about your day. I want to actually talk to you, yet I sit here all alone. So close that you could see me, Dad, if only I was in your phone. So don't be that neglectful parent. Make your child a priority. Children who grow up with involved fathers are 39% more likely to earn mostly A's in school. In other words, a child whose father is not involved is much more likely to have worse grades than a child whose father is involved with his life. A child who has involved fathers is less likely to fail and repeat a grade, 45% less likely. A child with an involved father is 60% less likely to be suspended or expelled from school. A child with an involved father is twice as likely to go to college and find stable employment after high school. A child with an involved father is 75% less likely to give birth as a teen, or to father a child as a teen. And a child with an involved father is 80% less likely to spend time in jail. So fathers, please be involved in your kids. Marriage is incredibly important to God and to your kids. Statistics show that being married is the most important factor regarding the spiritual, mental, and emotional health of your children. The most important factor. And mom and dad loving each other is also very important to your kids' development. But even if they're not crazy about each other, at least if they're married and they're getting along okay, then that will still be a blessing to the kids if the parents are married. If you're ever undecided about whether to discipline your child or extend grace, then go ahead and give grace. You know, of course, I'm not, and there, someone might hear this and be tempted to think, oh, you know, well, I never feel like giving discipline because I'm just a softie in my heart. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying sometimes there's, you know, oh, did the child really do something worth, you know, using your God-given wisdom, and you should be praying for wisdom. You know, and if you really can't decide whether God wants you to give discipline to your child or just, you know, give grace, then go ahead and give grace. Because society, which means laws, teachers, relatives, they can make up for a slight lack of discipline, but nobody can shower affection and love on your child like you can. So, yeah, once in a while, you won't be able to decide, and so go ahead and better to err on the side of mercy and grace than to, you know, be too strict and too, you know, too much doling out discipline all the time. Questions. Jesus loved it when his disciples asked him questions. In Luke chapter 8, Jesus said God revealed the secrets of heaven to his disciples because they sought answers from Jesus. Jesus had just taught a parable, and there was a crowd there, and the crowd was like, I don't get it, but whatever. But Jesus' disciples came up and asked him what did the parable mean. And Jesus said that they're blessed and that the secrets of heaven are revealed to them because they asked that question. But when your kids constantly ask you questions, do you think that's a curse? Do you get happy like Jesus did about questions, or do you think that's a curse? Actually, that's a blessing. That's your opportunity. You know, kids believe, young kids believe almost everything their parents tell them. That's your opportunity to download so much truth into your kids and to fill them full of the Word of God and wisdom, and just teach them about life. And please, when your kids ask questions, take the time to ask them. And even if they're not asking a spiritual question, you know, many times you can kind of turn the subject and say, you know, that reminds me of the kingdom of God, something like that. Make sure your child always knows that you love him or her. Lots of affection. Say I love you every day. Hugs and kisses every day. Your child needs to know that you love and care about him or her, and needs to feel that affection, with words and with physical things like kisses and hugs. Play together, pray together, read books together. Like I said, snuggling. When your child is sitting on your lap, don't just sit like this. Okay, and then Humpty Dumpty. Put your arms around your kid and snuggle and sneak a kiss once in a while. I'm trying not to cry because I'm thinking about my little kids when they were little back in the 90s. Most important parenting advice. If you don't hear anything else, hear this. Use this time in quarantine and whatever level of restriction you're in. Use this time to teach your kids how to pray and how to love the Word of God, how to meditate, how to think on the things of God. Disciple your kids. And you may never have a chance like this in your lifetime. And so this is an opportunity. Don't despise, if you're spending extra hours every day with your kids, don't despise this time. It's precious. It's an opportunity. And model for your kids the humility and the sacrificial love of Jesus. Let them see Jesus in your life. I love Philippians 2, how it talks about how Jesus was the perfect example of humility, how he was enthroned in heaven, the angels are praising him, everything's perfect, but he was willing to humble himself and come down to our level and offer himself as a sacrifice for us. Do your kids see that humility in you? Do you always tower over them, or are there times when you get down to their level and play with them, or talk in kind of baby talk ways, or just have fun with them, and humble yourself. Don't be so dignified all the time with your kids. Let them see you humble yourself like Jesus left heaven and even shed all of his glory so that he could come down and relate to us. Let's be like that with our kids. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to this group discussion. Can you move the camera up closer because it's small print, please, sweetie? And so that the screen. So go ahead and pause the video right here for this group discussion, and hopefully you're with some other people, or maybe you could share this video, and after they watch it you can talk about these questions and just things to make you think about how to apply this message to your life and help you to remember what's been taught. Hopefully that's been a blessing. Again, click subscribe below the video screen. Click subscribe on the right. On the left you'll see the description of the video. In that description area there's more information about our ministry. Our church is Compass Christian Church in Davao City, if you live in our city. If you live somewhere else and you're interested in supporting this missionary work, our mission is Davao City Outreach, and there's information for all of that in the video description. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to speak truth and wisdom that comes from heaven. I pray that you would use this video to be a blessing to many people. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. Take care.